same ayah over and over and over again, you extract new lessons from it, new dhikr. As long as you are attentive, when you're paying attention, your heart is in the right place, you start to notice things that you didn't notice the time before. Right? You read the ayah over and over and over again, and it serves more and more benefit in your life. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Hadid, اعلموا أنما الحياة الدنيا لعب ولهو وزينة وتفاخر بينكم وتكاثر في الأموال والأولاد كمثل غيث أعجب الكفار نباته ثم يهيج فتراه مصفرا ثم يكون حطاما. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that know that the life of this world is nothing more than play, amusement, zina, which is truly superficiality, just show, tafakhur baynakum, competition amongst you, takathur fil amwali wal awlad, gathering money and children, kamathali ghaythin a'jaba al-kuffar nabaته. Now I'm sure that you've heard a tafsir of this ayah before in Surah Al-Hadid, but there are truly, subhanAllah, every single time, and I'm being very honest with you, I've heard a tafsir of this ayah from no less than probably 50 different people, and 50 different people approach the ayah with 50 different perspectives, because of how profound this ayah is. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says your life is nothing more than that. And before we can truly understand, or we can truly appreciate the concept of the akhirah, we have to come to terms with what the life of this world is. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us it's nothing but play, amusement, superficiality, tafakhur bainakum, competition amongst yourselves, takathur fil amwali wal awlad. You're just piling money, and then you start trying to live your accomplishments for your children. And think about this. What part of your life is not covered in this ayah? When you're a child, when you come into this world, all you want to do is play. Everything in front of you is a toy. Alright? The remote for the TV is a toy. Your dad's watch is a toy. Everything is a toy. Everything either goes in the mouth or on the floor. Right? Everything is nothing more than a toy. And then you grow a little bit older, and then that's the Barney phase. You just want to sit there and watch TV all the time. Barney or Dora or whatever it is. Back then it wasn't Barney or Dora, but you just want to sit there and you're just glued to entertainment. Right? The zombie generation. That's what we're called, by the way. The zombie generation. You just sit in front of the TV and you're glued to it. But you're interested in entertainment and amusement, things of that sort. Wazina, it's superficiality, it's decoration. Everyone is trying to impress, dressing to impress, the whole model of dress to impress, right? You define your value, or you value yourself according to the way others look at you. It's zina. What's tafakhur bainakum? I'm going very quickly through these things, but I just want you to think about this, inshallah. Tafakhur bainakum, competition, where the 18-year-old comes home and slams the door shut on his mom and says, I'm a grown man, respect me like a grown man. Takathur fil amwali wal awlad, then you realize it's all about making money, and more money. You make money for the sake of making more money. And then you try to live those same accomplishments, you try to live another life through your child. So the same things that you were trying to achieve, you try to achieve them through your children. And Allah Azza wa Jalla says, كَمَثَلِ غَيْثٍ أَعْجَبَ الْكُفَّارَ نَبَاتُهُ. It's like a beneficial rain that came and it planted, a beneficial tree, planted a tree, something sprouted, ثُمَّ يَهِيجُ فَتَرَاهُ مُصْفَرًا. And this is the part of the ayah I want to focus on today. The other tafsir, I'm sure you might have heard it before. ثُمَّ يَهِيجُ فَتَرَاهُ مُصْفَرًا. Literally, the translation of that is that the plant starts to dry up, and what happens to it? What happens to a plant when it dries up? Before it dies, what happens to it?
Shrivels.
It shrivels and it turns yellow. It doesn't get greener, but it turns yellow. It keeps on turning yellow until eventually it shrivels up and it dies completely. Now there's one mu'jiza from this ayah that, subhanAllah, actually I remember Dr. Khatim al-Hajj, Hafizahullah, he actually pointed out the mu'jiza of this ayah from a medical perspective. That whenever you come into this world, as a baby, the water content of your body is about 75%. The more that you age, the less the water content becomes. And then whenever you pass away, it's only about 50% of your body. SubhanAllah. So there's actually a medical, a scientific miracle that comes in this ayah, as Dr. Hatim mentioned once in the lecture. In essence, you shrivel up, you you get older, you naturally become more dehydrated, and then you pass away. And that's the end of this. Right? Then it all disappears. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this is a punishment. وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ عَذَابٌ شَدِيدٌ. And then in Akhirah, there is a severe punishment. If you thought that punishment was bad, the true punishment comes in Akhirah. The real punishment is going to come in the hereafter. That's where the severe punishment is going to be. And for the believers, وَمَغْفِرَةٌ مِنَ اللَّهِ وَرِضْوَانٌ, the forgiveness of Allah and His pleasure. The forgiveness of Allah and His pleasure. Now, why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mention His maghfirah here and His ridwan? What were the believers trying to accomplish this whole time while everybody else was getting caught in this, everyone else was getting caught in this hot pursuit of dunya? What were they trying to accomplish? You guys with me? Do I need to speak in Urdu? I can try. It won't be a very good lecture, I promise. What is the believer trying to accomplish? What's your purpose in life? The pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? He's engaged in the pursuit of the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, while the believer is pursuing the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, does he feel like he's getting anywhere? Does he feel like he's arrived? Right? I came to the masjid one time, mashallah, I prayed Fajr today. Man, I'm such a good Muslim. I'm a believer. Last night I prayed the other day. Look, my eyes are a little bloodshot because I was crying last night. Pretty cool, huh? I gave charity. I was sitting at this fundraiser, and I felt sorry because no one was really answering. And I raised my hand and I gave peace to them. You know? Like all that kind of stuff. You know? Like, mashallah, look at me. That's urge. That's war. That's deluding yourself. That's the people that waste their lives and lose their actions. But the true believer, does he ever feel like he's arrived or does he feel like he's falling short? He always feels like he's falling short. The people of dunya, do they feel like they've arrived or do they feel like they're falling short? They think they've arrived. Whenever they're caught into this dunya, they think they've arrived. Right? Like a kid who gets his Xbox 360 and has no responsibilities in life yet, thinks this is it, man, this is Jannah. This is it. This is what life is all about. They think they've arrived. And so one punishment for them is that they figure out as life goes on that they haven't arrived. The reward for the believer is that he thinks he hasn't arrived. So what does that cause him to do? To strive harder. So what is he concerned with from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first and foremost? That Allah forgives him, right? Allah forgives him for his shortcoming. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ عَذَابٌ شَدِيدٌ وَمَغْفِرَةٌ مِنَ اللَّهِ. The first thing, a maghfirah, a complete and comprehensive forgiveness. So for the one who wasn't caught up in that whole thing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is already letting him know, you've been forgiven. So the punishment in life of not actually arriving, you actually did arrive. But had you known that you arrived, you would have been in trouble. You would have stopped working. So you actually, when you were pursuing the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you actually were living your life the way it was supposed to be lived. And Allah wants to let you know, you've been forgiven already. Now for the disbeliever, he thought he arrived in dunya, and he realized as dunya went on, as life went on, he wasn't getting anywhere. So whenever he meets Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment, does he get rewarded? Does his struggle get rewarded in this life? No. He was struggling. Allah says we created mankind in kabad, in toil. Right? They're just always toiling. You're toiling towards something. You're working towards something. You're consuming yourself in something. And on the day of judgment, they get absolutely nothing. They get absolutely nothing. And they get a greater punishment, and that is that they met the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is truly severe. So two punishments in life. For the believer who doesn't think that he arrived, Allah tells him you arrived. But you can't know that yet. You can't know that yet. But you have maghfirah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you know what? You also achieved Ridwan. You also pleased Him. And the one who pleased Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Akhirah gets even a greater reward. The Jannah of this earth, as Imam al-Qayyim rahimahullah said, the Jannah of this world, the paradise of this world is Jannatul Yaqeen. Is to have the paradise of certainty. You know you're working for something real. You think you're falling short, but you know you're working for something real. And the Jahim of this life, Imam al-Qayyim rahimahullah says, the hellfire of this life is Jahim al-Ghurur. The Jahim, the hellfire of being deluded. Thinking that you're getting somewhere and you're not getting anywhere. The hell of a purposeless life. There's actually a book called The Hell of a Purposeless Life. Having no purpose in life, and then you meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it gets only worse. For the believer, it gets better. So Allah guarantees the believer in this ayah two things. Maghfirah, for what you did in this life, but one which is going to benefit you in the hereafter. Allah Akbar. Maghfirah, so that you taste the Jannah of this earth, but one so that you taste the Jannah of the hereafter. But for the disbeliever, for the one who was toiling, who was working for absolutely nothing, it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse. SubhanAllah. It just keeps getting worse. Now here's what I want to talk about here, and this is SubhanAllah, the profound reflection of this ayah amongst many that you find is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says before it becomes qiyamah, which is death, before everything disappears, Allah says, you will see it as yellow. Right? You will see it as yellow. And you know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us? When you want something, it looks awesome. When iPhone first came out, mashallah, the iPhone's coming out, look, you can do this, it's got this app. When cell phones first came out, you guys remember the Zach Morris phone? They call it the Zach Morris phone, those big phones that you see in the old Jackie Chan movies and stuff like that. These huge phones that like take up the whole face, it looks like it's something in the hospital. When that first came out, mashallah, this is great. We can call people, right? Then you know what, the cell phone was too big. It needed to become a little bit smaller. Then the cell phone needed to have different colors to it. Then the cell phone needed to have an LED display. Then it needed to be touchscreen. Then you know what, it needed to have a few extra lights. Then it needed to have more apps to it. Then you know what, iPhone 1 isn't good enough, I want an iPhone 2. Before you got the iPhone 1, it was like, I've got an iPhone. Then you know what, I want an iPhone 2. You know why? Because you get an iPhone 2 and then what do you say? I can't wait till the iPhone 3 comes out. Then you get an iPhone 4. What do you say? I can't wait till iPhone 5 comes out. Then Steve Jobs died. End of story. Everyone will belong. iPhone died. I still have an iPhone, by the way. Right. But the point is that before you get something in dunya, you think it's the greatest thing in the world. As soon as you own it, you know what happens? It turns yellow. SubhanAllah. It turns yellow. After you got it, you realize it wasn't all that it was made out to be. So one punishment from Allah before death, it turned yellow. You got a certain type of car. I don't care what model the car is. I need another type of car. That's going to be the exact same car, except the rims are going to spin a little bit more. Or the lights are going to move a little bit differently. But everything keeps turning yellow, and you keep on falling in this pursuit of abundance. The pursuit of more. And what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? You have become destroyed by your pursuit of abundance. More and more and more and more and more. An addiction to this life. More and more and more and more. Then one shot in the grave, it's all over. It's all gone. But you're destroying yourselves by the pursuit of more. And this is true in wealth, and this is true in other things. It's kind of like, I was mentioning the Apple thing. I remember there was a review that was written. You guys remember when iPad came out, then iPad 2 came out. And it was basically the exact same thing, not much different. But everyone felt like they had to have the iPad 2 now. And the reason being is that people have been deluded into thinking abundance brings about happiness. Abundance brings happiness. And people have mistaken happiness for achievement. There's a huge difference between the two. Happiness and achievement. So they think by getting more, I will naturally be happy. But what did Rasulullah say? If the son of Adam is given one valley of gold, is he going to sit back and say, Alhamdulillah, I Prophet ﷺ say he's going to do? He's going to go look for another valley of gold. He's going to try to use that valley of gold to go get another valley of gold. If he gets 2, he's going to want 3. If he gets 3, he's going to want 4. And the Prophet ﷺ said nothing's going to stop his pursuits except for dirt in his mouth. Meaning death. And subhanAllah, there's article after article after article. This is not just Muslims talking about how this pursuit of abundance has killed people. How people in these days have buried themselves in debt. Right? Buried themselves in debt because of the pursuit of abundance. So I want this type of car. I'm willing to do everything I can to buy this car. I don't care how many payments I'm going to put on it. I don't care how many payments I have to put on it. I want this huge house. I want this big house. I'm willing to sell my deen, willing to sell my religion, and take the fatwa that says riba is halal. You can buy your house on a mortgage. Go ahead, buy your house on a mortgage. It's okay. It's a necessity. It's a darura. Go ahead, buy your house on a mortgage. And then you get that house on a mortgage, and you're not able to enjoy that house. Why? Because you're too busy driving the car that you bought on payments to work every day, trying to make enough money to pay off that house. And the house turned yellow within the first week. It was beautiful the first few days, then it turned yellow. And you're buried in debt. And that's why people get depressed. And Allah told us in the Quran already, you become destroyed by abundance. The craving and addiction for more and more and more and more. And it's not just true with money. It's true with status. It's true with fame too. You want to impress a certain group of people. Why are celebrities so depressed? Right? Why did Britney Spears shave her head and start beating up on people's cars? Why? They work their entire lives for it. Then when they get there, it turns yellow. It all turns yellow. And subhanAllah, I remember there was an interview once with one of, do any of you remember the show Different Strokes? That's old school, right? Everyone else is looking around like, what are you guys talking about? Different Strokes. Gary Coleman, really short guy, and he had his brother, and they had the white dad, 2 black kids with a white dad. And it was like breaking racial stereotypes and things of that sort in America. It was considered a stride towards the end of racism and things of that sort. All of a sudden there was no more racism because there was a show where they had a white dad and 2 black kids. MashaAllah, it was all over. Or so they wanted it to seem that way. They had the older brother of Gary Coleman, and that kid, after that show, went through all kinds of changes in his life. Cocaine, all the hard drugs in life. You got one hard drug, and you go from one hard drug to another hard drug to another hard drug to another hard drug. Ran himself broke himself completely. Was found naked on the side of the road one day, almost dead, behind a gas station. And I remember they interviewed him after he cleaned up. 2 months later, he went back to it. But they interviewed him after he cleaned up, and he said, "What did you want? What did you want? You had it all. Why do you think you fell into that? You were a childhood star. You had it all." He said, "I didn't want any of that. I just wanted to be able to go out and get an ice cream home without anybody following me." You think about that for a moment. How many of you can go get an ice cream home without a paparazzi in your face? Some of you are more famous than all of us. Some of you are some serious celebrities. MashaAllah, will you please introduce yourself? We can go get ice cream without anyone harassing us. Right? We can go get ice cream without paparazzi. We can live our lives normally. But you don't appreciate that. Allah gave you a ni'mah. Right? I was sitting with Sheikh Muhammad Sharif this weekend. He said something really, I was asking him, we were talking about, the shiuk hobby is frequent flyer miles. It's like, yeah, we travel this much. Where are you at? I'm at platinum. I'm not executive platinum. I was at executive platinum a long time ago. What are you talking about? I got to fly business class to Dubai and stuff like that. So I was asking, I was like, did you get to fly business class? On Emirates Airlines? Have you ever flown business class on Emirates Airlines? MashaAllah, it was great, right? So I was like, how did that feel? I always wanted to fly business class on Emirates Airlines. He's like, alhamdulillah, was good. And I thought this was really cool, but then he said, then I realized that people pay $8,000 to sleep on a bed for 16 hours. Think about that. But when you get home, first class. You've got a room. You've got your own kitchen. You've got privacy. But it's what's been implanted in our heads, the pursuit of more. And what's a cat for? After you get there, it all turns yellow. And Allah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to save us from that addiction. يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُخَفِّفَ عَنْكُمْ وَخُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا. Allah wants to make things easier for you because man has been created weak. You are no different than the 2-year-old that's trying to kill themselves by swallowing a Pokemon toy. They think that by putting that Pokemon toy in their mouth, they're going to be happy. And you as a parent, you have a responsibility to tell them you're just going to kill yourself. It doesn't taste any better than the ice cream you ate. It's just a toy, and you're going to choke. You have a responsibility because your child doesn't know any better. And so when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes haram for us certain things, Allah knows that we don't know any better. We don't know any better. But we're so indulged in this pursuit of more and more and more and more and having what's a kafir. And we think that by getting more, we'll naturally become more grateful. You know, a lot of times people are, you'll say to someone, or you'll think to yourself, why am I not grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And then shaitan will get you to start feeling sorry for yourself, self-pity. You'll start feeling sorry for yourself. So you'll start telling yourself, well, you know, I didn't grow up in a rich family like everybody else. I don't have the status of that person. I'm not this, I'm not that. That person looks better than me. That person has more friends than me. That person has more money than me. That person's in a better school than me. That person's this, that person's that. Shaitan will make you start feeling sorry for yourself. So we think, naturally, by increase, we get happier. The more you have, I'll be happy later on. Oh Allah, if you just get me through med school. Oh Allah, if you just let the Miami Heat win the finals. Using David Stern. Oh Allah, somehow, right? I'll be happy, I'll be happy, I'll be happy. Just give me this and I'll be happy. I'm sorry, Heat fans, that was a joke. It's part of the lecture. Just make sure you're still awake. I'm not awake. I'll be happy. Give me this, give me that. I'll be happy. Oh Allah, if you allow me to do this, I'm going to give so much sadaqah. But what happens? You become the hamster in the wheel. You're running, you're running, you're running, you're not getting anywhere. And then once you get that thing, it turns yellow. You got it. Those 2 letters in front of your name were not as cool as you thought they would be. It got old. It was pretty cool when people called you doctor, you know, in the beginning. But then it got old. I'm not saying you shouldn't become doctors. I'm saying that people who think that the only way I can possibly be happy is if I have those 2 initials in front of my name. If I have a 6-figure salary, if I have this, if I have that, they think they'll get happier. But what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say in the Quran? وَإِذْ تَأَذَّنَ رَبُّكُمْ لَإِنْ شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. Allahu Akbar. Allah says in the Quran, when your Lord proclaimed, it's already been done, this is how you're created. لَإِنْ شَكَرْتُمْ, if you are grateful, لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. You will have increase in your life. We treat it the opposite. We think with increase we'll get happier, so naturally we'll start to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more. That's not true. But in shakartum, if you're grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, la azidannakum, I'm going to increase you. And Allah left it open. Not la azidannakum amwala aw baneen. Allah did not say just money and children and these types of things. No, la azidannakum. You'll be increased in every way. Gratitude brings about increase. Increase does not necessarily bring about gratitude because increase is torture in dunya if it's not accompanied with gratitude. It is absolute torture. It will kill you because you will realize that you've wasted your time. Every time you get to the next phase in this circle of life, you will realize that you wasted your time and life has not gotten any greener. In fact, it turned yellow and then you die. Ya haswata. Ya haswata. Oh, how I messed up. Regret, remorse. And subhanAllah, the whole reason being, we mistake happiness for achievement. And you know, subhanAllah, there was actually a book that was written. I know the guy's last name is Maxwell, but the name of the book was Happiness versus Achievement. And subhanAllah, you read about these things and you always find the Quran already talked about them. That's the amazing thing. The Quran already talked about these things, and now you have these huge books, self-help books that people are paying, $10 off of Amazon, $15, all these self-help courses. The Quran already addressed them. And he said the difference between happiness and achievement. So he actually gave this example about a very famous chef in France. Is anyone in here a chef? Anybody? No one in here is a chef? I know, you're all doctors. Right? Chefs. the highest ranking you can achieve? How many stars? Anybody know? Not 5 stars. 3 stars. A 3-star chef is like Gordon Ramsay, there's a few black belts of becoming chef, of chefs. To become a 3-star chef, and I just know this because of the book, to become a 3-star chef is like crazy. You have to work years and years and years and years and years. So subhanAllah, this chef worked for 18 years to become a 3-star chef. And he became an extremely famous chef in France. 2 months after he reached his 3 stars, he killed himself. He committed suicide. Why do you think that is? He made the mistake. Happiness versus achievement. He thought that increase would bring about happiness. He thought that if I get there, it's going to bring about happiness. Tarah musfallah. Notice Allah doesn't just say it turns yellow. Allah says, Tarah musfallah. You will see it as yellow. You get it and you will see it as yellow. You will see it as, this is what I work for. This is what I've been missing out on life because I was missing out on life so I can get this, so I can get here. Right? That's subhanAllah. You know, and he also mentioned, for example, women with their plastic surgeries. He specifically said women, men get plastic surgeries. Alright? It's pretty disgusting. They go through all these plastic surgeries. Right? They correct one thing about their bodies, they're not satisfied. They need to correct another thing. The nose job didn't go right the first time, they're going to keep on going at it for 5, 6 times until they get it right. Because they see it as yellow. It's not what it was made out to be. SubhanAllah, I mean, I know these are many examples that SubhanAllah, I just want you guys to think about. But truly think about it. The main mistake that they're making, and Allah says, لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. I always give this example, because I'm going to mention a few of these things, but I always give this example. So let's bring it to your own life. How many of you have kids in here? Most of you are youth. How many of you have kids in here? How many of you have kids that go to school? MashaAllah. Alright, let me tell you let me put you in this scenario, and you guys can remember this when you have kids if you don't have kids, okay? Let me give you this scenario. You're picking up your child from school, and your child jumps in the car and slams the door and scratches it. Right? Left this book sack string out there, slammed the door, somehow he scratched the car. Do you know how bad you want to strangle your kid at that moment? Especially if it's a nice car. Right? If it's a nice car. Right? This is my 2010 BMW stuck on the wall. How dare you? How could you? Be more careful. You will yell at him, you will be angry with him, and you don't want to strangle him. Now let me ask you a question. If you have a car accident on the way home, your car flips over 8 times and catches on fire, and you manage to crawl out, and you look back at your car and you realize that your son is in there. Do you care anymore about the scratch on the car? Do you even care about the car itself? No. All you're saying is, I want my son. I want my son. I already had first class. I already had the life. Just give me back my son. Oh God, please, my son. SubhanAllah. You had it, but you weren't grateful. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested you. You had it, but you weren't grateful. How many things in our lives can we say, I had it, but I wasn't grateful? And then I realized afterwards, everything I was toiling for turned yellow. The car meant absolutely nothing at the end of the day. The reason why I always reflect on this, and by the way, that's an incident that actually happened. That's actually a Muslim brother that actually happened to me. And subhanAllah, there was a non-Muslim in Joplin, Missouri. If you all remember the tornadoes that struck Joplin, Missouri, just a little over a year ago. And there was one house. You know, CNN was going and interviewing each and every single person that lost their homes and things of that sort. Obviously, they want to invoke emotion and things of that sort. So how do you feel about this? You just lost your house, you lost everything. What do you expect them to say? Oh, I'm having a good day. What about you? No. All of them, sometimes they get speechless, sometimes they cry. You notice how the camera zooms in on their eyes when they start crying? Zooms in to show you the helplessness of it. That's media. That's media for you. When you know the tricks of media, you kind of get disgusted. Right? So that's media. To evoke that type of emotion. And subhanAllah, we have this situation. There's a woman that's holding her baby, and the camera comes on her. And she's standing in front of her destroyed house, and she's smiling. And I'm fascinated. I'm watching this, and I'm going, this is interesting. He says to her, "Man, how do you feel? Is there anything you'd like to say to the world?" She says, "I have never been happier than I am today." SubhanAllah, not Muslim. He said, "Why is that?" She says, "Whenever the tornado struck, my daughter escaped me. She flew from me. And I grabbed her arms. And as the tornado was tearing up the house, I said, oh God, just let me keep my daughter. I don't want anything else." And she said, "I never appreciated the blessing of my daughter until today." SubhanAllah. You have things in your life that people would die for. That people would die for. Right? Well, I mean, there's an example from Ibrahim rahimahullah. You don't think you have money? Sell me your leg. Cut off your leg and sell it to me for $5 million. I'll give it to you. Would anyone be willing to do that? No. Sell me your arms. Sell me, just sell me your body parts. How about this? I'll poke your eyes and I'll give you $10 million. The pursuit of abundance kills you because you already had gold, but you weren't realizing it. Because I've had to gather more and more and more and more, and it kills us. It drives us to insanity, and it's even worse when we meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you see it as yellow, and then you meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with absolutely nothing for your hereafter. Now, back to another book on happiness, The Pursuit of Happiness. His name was Joseph Addison, or John Addison. Addison is the last name. He said that there are 3 things that make you happy in life. 3 ingredients of happiness in life. Okay? Now you remember these 3 things, okay? Something to do, something to love, and something to look forward to. He said if you have those 3 ingredients, you're set. You're set. If you're missing any one of them, then the other 2 become worthless. So for example, some people work their entire lives for retirement, and when they retire, do they enjoy sitting at home all day? They've got something to love. They might have something to look forward to. They might have businesses that are making the money when they've retired, but they don't have anything to do. So they try to give themselves work. Right? Think about it. You try to give yourself work after you retire, but you try to do it in a different way. But you're trying to make yourself busy, because not being busy drives you insane. So you need something to do. Something to love. If you've got nothing to love, subhanAllah, we see that there are corporate, CEOs, how many Enron executives or officers committed suicide and things of that sort. They have the money, they have the work, they have something to look forward to, but in the process of becoming shrewd businessmen, they lost all of their family members. The people that love them for their money. They don't even know who their true friends are anymore. They've lost it all. They're just caught up in it now. I'm working, I'm going to work every day, I'm making a 6-figure salary, but I'm not happy. Why? Because you've become devoid of love. You have nothing to love, and you have no one to love you. Everything has become superficial. Something to look forward to. Whenever you reach your peak, and this is why celebrities kill themselves and do hard drug after hard drug after hard drug after hard drug. Once you reach your peak, your maximum output, whatever scope you have, and you've got nowhere else to look forward to, you've got nothing else to look forward to, then you want to kill yourself. Now you know what the beauty of this all is? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, and this is a very famous quotation, by the way, I think it's Joseph Addison. Something to do, something to love, something to look forward to. Allah says in the Quran, وَسَارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِنْ رَبِّكُمْ وَجَنَّةٍ عَرْضُهَا كَعَرْضِ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَأُعِدَّتْ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Allah addressed it in an ayah. Wallahi, that's the first thing I thought when I read this book. I was like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already mentioned this 1400 years ago, but no one gives Allah credit for that, right? Allah figured out your solution to happiness, your key to happiness, but you needed a guy by the name of Addison, who's a PhD from Harvard, to tell you this is how you become happy. You had to buy it from Amazon.com because divine revelation was not enough for you. It wasn't enough in the Quran, that's too trivial. It was already there. Wasari'u, rush, meaning work. Sari'u, rush, grace, be productive, إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ, to the forgiveness of your Lord, something to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What do you have to look forward to? جَنَّةٍ عَرْضُهَا كَعَرْضِ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ, a paradise that is more vast than everything the heavens and the earth has. And it's been promised for those who believe, for those who are conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who are awake and fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَعِدَّتْ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. What did Allah give you, subhanAllah, in this pursuit of deen? And you know what it is? When you start working fi sabilillah, when you start going to the lesson more, when you start giving yourself the goal of memorizing the Quran, when you start busying yourself in talabat al-ilm, and seeking knowledge, and acting, al-amal, al-ilm wal-amal, seeking knowledge and acting, seeking knowledge and acting, seeking knowledge and acting, does anything turn yellow? No. Did coming to Fajr ever turn yellow for you? No. When you sought knowledge, did you ever get bored? No. SubhanAllah, I'm telling you, you start seeking knowledge, and you will think you are the greatest fool in the world. You will not dare call yourself anything. You're like, I don't know nothing, and I just want to keep listening. Right? I don't care if this guy is going to talk about tahara, whether water is pure or not, for 2 hours. This is sweet. It's getting greener. Everything gets greener. You work in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you strive, it gets greener. You start tasting the sweetness of it. You start tasting the ladha. You want more, but not in the way that depresses you over the past because you feel like you haven't gotten anywhere. No! You want more because you realize you've struck gold and these trees just keep getting greener and greener and greener and greener. But it takes you to break that crack addiction, meaning your dunya addiction, as soon as possible. The longer you've been on this drug of dunya, the harder it is for you to break that addiction. Once you get out of it, that's why people who start young, you look at the Sahaba, al-Abadiyah. I just finished the 10th week. I just finished an entire week on al-Abadiyah. The 4 Abdullahs. There are over 300 Abdullahs, but 4 Abdullahs who were children in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, who took full advantage of them. Abdullah ibn Umar, Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, Abdullah ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Zubayr. They were children. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was more than them in virtue. In virtue. There's no doubt about it. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. But the reason why these 4 are called al-Abadiyah, they were little kids. They were little kids around the Prophet ﷺ who started in their youth and lived long lives to narrate ahadith and teach the Ummah. They started quick. They started early. They didn't wait until someone broke that addiction for them. They broke the addiction themselves because they recognized it's not getting me anywhere. I'm not becoming happier. Once you start working fi sabilillah, and I'm not saying that, subhanAllah, this means automatically that I need to send my application to Medina University. If I don't get in, oh well, I'm going to go back to my dunya addiction. No, you start learning, you start coming to the lesson more. You set a goal of memorizing Quran, it just keeps getting greener. The feeling that you memorized after 10 juz is not, man, I wasted my time memorizing 10 juz. It's like, I can't wait to get to 20. And the feeling after 20 is, I can't wait to memorize the Quran. Then when you memorize the Quran, perhaps you want to memorize it in Warsh. Then when you do it in Warsh, you want to go to Hafs al-Nisa. You want to keep going Qira'ah after Qira'ah. You just want to keep memorizing and memorizing and memorizing, learning more, right? Shaykh Walid al-Manisi. Does anyone know Shaykh Walid al-Manisi? Anyone? Shaykh Walid? I'm telling you, man, this guy gathers ijazas as a hobby or something. He's got so many ijazas, you can't count them. It's like, subhanAllah, it gets greener. And you know what? That's not a bad thing. Does that mean you're being prideful? No. I'm going to end with this one hadith from the Messenger ﷺ, the one that Imam Ahmad narrated with the authentic son. إِذَا صَرَّتْكَ حَسَنَاتُكَ وَسَاءَتْكَ سَيِّئَاتُكَ فَأَنْتَ مُؤْمِنٌ. If your good deeds make you happy and your bad deeds make you sad, you're a believer. Your good deeds should make you feel good, just not proud. They should make you feel good in a way that you are happy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guided you to this and you want to keep going down that path of guidance. Not that, mashallah, look at me, alhamdulillah, I'm this and I'm that. No, that's destructive. That's worse than sinning. لَوْلَا تُذْنِبُ الْخَشَيْتُ عَلَيْكُمْ مَا أَكْبَرَ مِنْ ذَلِكَ الْعُجْبُ الْعُجْبُ. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, if you were to not sin, I would fear something greater than that. Al-urj. where you would become proud of yourself, conceited, deluded, thinking, hey, I'm great. No, not that. But you get into the path of deen, somehow, learning activism, it gets sweeter, it gets greener. وَبِالْآخِرَةِ What do you have? You have the one of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I want to end with just this one thing. What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promise in terms of Jannah? You know, we always give this question. Why doesn't Allah just give it to me all now? Right? Why doesn't Allah just give me Jannah? Let me get a taste of Jannah now. At least in the grave, you get to dress from the dress of Jannah, you get to smell like Jannah, you get to, graze your gardens a little bit, eat from the food of Jannah. How come we can't have a little bit before Barzakh here? Why can't we have some of that Jannah now? And subhanAllah, if you notice, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Jannatin a'arduha ka'ardu as-sama'i wal-ard. Or a'arduha as-sama'i wal-ard. It depends on the ayah. Surah Al-Imran. It's more vast than the heavens and the earth. Right? And there's a great scholar by the name of Ibn Al-Askandari, rahimahullah, who said, إِنَّمَا جَعَلَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ مَحَلًّا لِجَزَاءِ عِبَادِهِ لِأَنَّ هَذِهِ الدُّنْيَا لَا تَسَعْ مَا أَرَادَ أَنْ يُعْطِيَهُمْ. SubhanAllah, that's the first thing. He said, Allah has made the akhirah your place of getting Jannah, because this dunya can't fit what Allah wants to give you. It can't fit it. But Allah wants to give you, it can't fit it. Let me ask you a question. If I was to have people like car manufacturers, alright, some like awesome car manufacturers from Japan or something like that, that could build a car in 2 days, come into your living room and build you the sweetest car that you've ever had in your life, what's the first thing you're going to say to yourself? After like, okay, that's nice, but why did you build my living room? I'm going to drive my car like Power Wheels around the living room, like my kid. I want the car outside, so I don't want it in my living room, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He gave you Jannah now, if He gave you some of it now, it's going to benefit you. It's just dunya. You're going to die anyway, right? What are you going to get from it? Everything expires in dunya. Everything gets worse. Everything turns yellow in dunya. So even if I get Jannah now, I assure you, any of you ever been to the Caribbean, like Bahamas and stuff like that? It's awesome when you first, it's like mind-blowing when you first, you just want to sit there and drool when you first see it. Then 4th, 5th day, it's like, alright, time to go home, I'm tired. SubhanAllah, your eyes are feasted on it. It got old. It got old. So that's the first thing. You don't want the car built on the inside of your house. Right? And at the same time, you can't, why doesn't anyone bring the car in a box, gift wrapped? You just can't gift wrap a car and bring it inside. I can't give you that. So if I want to give you a car, what do I do? What do I do? I would present you a small box that you might think is chocolate. Brothers, if you want to be very romantic with your wives, this is what you do. I've never done this. I don't want to be hypocrite. I don't have that kind of money. So I'm taking donations if you want to help. Like guidance with something good. You want to give your wife something? Like make her think you're giving her a box of chocolates one day? But actually put a key in there. Buy her a car. And if you want to be mean, put a key in there and tell her there's no car. But if you want to give her a car, right? Put the key in there. You're not just going to say, hey, look, go check out the garage. Those of you who can afford to do this, here, look, it's, just a little something so I can get you. Here you go, Mom. Right? She opens and she sees the key. Why did you give her the key? You couldn't put it in the box. And you couldn't put it in the living room. One of them, for one, you can't fit it in the box. For two, if it's in the living room, she can't really use it. She can use it around the house a little bit. And I don't think she'd want to do that. So think about this for Jannah. إِنَّمَا جَعَلَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ مَحَلًّا لِجَزَاءِ عِبَادِهِ لِأَنَّ هَذِهِ الدَّارَ لَا تَسَعْ مَا أَرَادَ أَنْ يُعْطِيَهُمْ. And then the other thing, that this place can't fit what Allah wants to give you. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala أَجَلَّ أَقْدَارَهُمْ عَلَىٰ أَنْ يُعْطِيَهُمْ فِي دَارٍ لَا بَقَاءَ لَهَا. Allah has honored you too much to give you in a home that does not have the quality of everlastingness. It's not going to last. That's why Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَالْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى. The akhirah is better and it lasts longer. خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى. Nothing expires in akhirah. Nothing expires in Jannah. Sometimes I get this question from some of the sisters, like, am I going to be stuck with my husband some male version of Hurul Ain. I don't want to. No, even if he's in Jannah, I'm happy for him, but I don't want to see him. Jannah is not like here. Every time you see your wife, every time you see your husband, what did the Prophet ﷺ say happens? You're even more beautiful than the last time I saw you. Because in Jannah, nothing gets old. It just keeps getting better and better and better and better. And imagine how much torture it would be if you had to leave Jannah. If you ever had to leave Jannah. And that's why, once you get into Jannah, you are not coming out. Once we get in, inshaAllah ta'ala, we will not go out. I don't want to go talk to anybody outside of Jannah. Let those people outside of Jannah deal with their own business. I've got Jannah to enjoy for the rest of my existence. Inshallah ta'ala, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from Ahlul Jannah. Don't say Ameen. But once you get in, you're not getting out. And in fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, or the Messenger said in the hadith, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring death in the form of a ram. And the people of Jannah would be called to see it, and the people of Hellfire would be called to see it. O people of Jannah, do you recognize what this is? Yes, it is death. O people of Hellfire, do you recognize what this is? It is death. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cause it to be slaughtered. Symbolic to show you that there is no more death. There is no more death. It's all over. وَالْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى. So did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the key to Jannah? Yes. He gave us La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. That's your key. That's how you get in. Everybody who has that key will eventually get into Jannah. Everybody who has that key will eventually get into Jannah. Even if he has an atom's worth of iman in his heart, he eventually gets in. Right? But what are we supposed to do with that key? How do you make your entrance smoother? Carve the teeth. Make sure that the teeth are fine. Make sure that they're well defined. You've got your salah, your siyam, your zakat, your hajj, your shahada, of course, obviously, that's the key in the first place. You've got the good deeds. You don't have any bad deeds that rusted up the key. You make your key fine so that whenever you get to Jannah, just get in, inshallah. And that's why there's a group of people who get to enter Jannah without any form of adab and without any form of hisab. No form of punishment and no form of accountability. They don't even have to be asked. You already come ready. So yes, the key will get you in if the teeth are not flying on it, but you're going to have to fight for a long time. And that's why there will be some people that will go to hellfire for some time before they enter into Jannah. But we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not to make us amongst them. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from the dwellers of Jannah and Firdaus. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enter us into Jannah without any form of adab, without any form of hisab. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the companionship of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in the highest level of Jannah and Firdaus. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst those who will stare at His face day and night in paradise, enjoying a beauty that the world cannot encompass. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the Jannah of this earth, which is the Jannah of Yaqeen, the Jannah of certainty. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us for our shortcomings and to be pleased with us. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not to make us amongst those who are destroyed by the false desires and empty desires of this dunya. Allahumma ameen. Jazakallah khairan to all of you for attending. Insha'Allah ta'ala, tomorrow, I think it'll be a beautiful program for everyone to come and just listen to different perspectives, different aspects of the Akhirah, to live for a moment thinking about the Akhirah, inshallah ta'ala. I don't know if are we going to take questions? What time is it? 10. What time is Maghrib? Okay. I'll take just 2 questions from brothers, 2 questions from sisters. How about that? Or can the sisters even ask questions? How would that work? Okay. Alright, any of the brothers have any questions? Anyone have any questions? What's your question?
You're smart.
Do I what?
You're smart.
I'm smart? Thank you. You're smarter. Does that come up? I'm not as smart as you think I am. But I appreciate the compliment. So that takes away one question. Any questions? Anyone else?
program?
Where's the program tomorrow? Do you know?
The DC Convention Center, inshallah. DC Gadai Conference, there's a flyer outside.
Is it at this masjid?
No, not this much.
Those are two questions from the brother. If there's any questions, you can just ask if you want. You can just ask inshallah, or you can send the next card. Yes.
Yeah, I have a concern that most of the people said if there is a conflict about that, if we are Muslim and we say the La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, at the end we have to be in a Jannah. But I said I have some conflict about it. Is it if someone is like very bad deed, but he's saying just La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, the only his iman is just La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, there's nothing positive in it. Does it consider to be the person going to be in Jannah?
Okay. So the question is, you have a problem with, or you have a conflict with that person can just say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah and eventually get to Jannah. Being a terrible person, a bad person. Is that the question?
Yeah, I know that a lot of non-Muslims, they are like doing very good deeds. As considered to be, I can think of a Muslim person, like as me, I'm saying La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, doing nothing. And now some of Jewish and Christians, they are doing much better than me. But then
good question. I get your question. So the point is, how can it be that a terrible Muslim who says La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah gets into Jannah, and a non-Muslim who does very good things but doesn't say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah won't get into Jannah? The answer is very, 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 very simple. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most just, and the first rule of the Day of Judgment is La Judgement Yawm. There will be no transgression today. Allah will not oppress anyone, and Allah will not be unjust with anyone. Meaning, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to judge on a person, so we have the general rule. The general rule is that no one who hears the La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah and hears the pure message of Islam and rejects it will be able to enter Jannah except through following the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, except through accepting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's legislation. Alright? There are people on the Day of Judgment who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will test on that day who did not hear the message properly. The reason why I mention that is because we have to, as Muslims, we have to understand Allah is the most just. What's the point of believing in Him if you don't believe He's the most just? He's the most just. So Allah will deal with every person as an individual on the Day of Judgment. Allah knows the circumstances of every person. Allah knows the extent of acceptance of every person. And Allah knows the extent of rejection of every person. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will judge every person as an individual. So there's no conflict in the theology. There's a conflict, or there's a problem whenever we entertain, or we try to, judge individuals and say, hey, you're going to hell, you're going to Jannah. First of all, saying La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah doesn't get you into Jannah. Believing La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah gets you into Jannah. Okay? Eventually, believing gets you into Jannah. So having an atom's weight of that in your heart, that's from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we understand the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He would allow that person to eventually enter Jannah. But after how many thousands and thousands and thousands of years of being punished? Now as far as the non-Muslims, again, Allah knows their circumstances. Quite frankly, if you're busy with yourself, you don't have time to worry about anybody else. You don't have time. I mean, you have to call them, yeah. But I'm not concerned, to be honest with you, on the Day of Judgment, and this is true for both me and you and everybody in here, you're not going to be asking about, hey, I wonder what happened to Umar Sulaiman, I wonder if he's in Jannah. You're going to be worried about yourself. Because we should all be worried about ourselves in terms of judgment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's His role and His role only, and Allah is the most just. That's all I have to know, is that He's going to be just. He's not going to deal with anyone with injustice. That's the only thing that I need to know. Okay? Any sisters? Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. That's because there's a misunderstanding.
Can you read that question?
Yes. Okay. understand, again, number one, Allah judges you as an individual. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows your circumstances. So the Prophet mentioned in an authentic hadith, for example, 4 people being brought in front of Allah on the Day of Judgment. One of them was someone who lived between Isa and the Prophet, meaning the message did not reach him. He lived between 2 messengers and the message did not reach him. The second one was a person who died before the age of maturity, a child. The third is a person who has mental retardation, cannot properly grasp the message. The fourth is someone who was senile. The hadith says shaykh. So when you say shaykh, you're calling someone old. But, shaykh meaning, this was a person who was senile, extremely old, feeble by the time the message reached him. So the Prophet said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will test them separately on that day. Look how easy this test is. This is an easy test. This is not a hard test. This is an easy test. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will present a fire and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, jump into this. Now, you know on that day Allah is in control of everything. You know. So it's actually, there is not, comment. It's not a hard test. It's actually, look, trust me, jump into this. Trust me, jump into this. Just jump into this fire. Okay? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if the person jumps in, then they will enter into Jannah. They will be completely forgiven. And that was their test on the Day of Judgment. Why? Sadaqullah. They believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when Allah spoke to them. The one who refuses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say that I sent my messengers on the Day of Judgment. I sent my messengers in dunya to warn the people. And today I am the messenger of myself. If you rejected me, then you would have rejected my messengers on earth. The point being is that if you're rejecting me, I'm telling you, be careful, you're going to enter hellfire if you don't obey me. How would you have listened to a human being in this world? Meaning the message did not fairly reach those people. Okay, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala judges everyone as an individual. And there are many, many different writings thought. Yes, it might be problematic whenever it just says a quick line, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put kuffar in hellfire, and they will never enter into Jannah. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that in the Quran because this is the norm. The exception would be that a person did not have Islam reach them, because the word kafir means to reject. It means they rejected it when it came to them. Kafara is they covered it. It's like a farmer when they covered the seeds. They rejected it, they concealed it. They recognized it, it came to them, and they rejected it. So that person, why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not accept any of their deeds, because that person did not even recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. So what is the point of his good deeds then? If he does not even recognize his creator. And the example that I always give in that regard, why would shirk be so horrible? What would you say about a person who's charitable to society? But his mother, who gave him everything in life, and never did any harm to him, who gave him everything in life, who supported him, he says to his mother, you're not even my mom, go away. I have nothing to do with you. All of his charity becomes voided because he has disbelieved or disregarded the one who did everything for him in this life. In terms of a motherly son, a human being went out of her way for him. So, when a person rejects their creator, knowingly, because the truth came to them, he rejected it, then everything else becomes void, because the one who gave him the limbs for him to do the good deeds, he's not even acknowledging that Allah gave him those limbs, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone is worthy of my worship and my unconditional obedience. So that's, again, as long as we understand the creed of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah is La Dhulma Yawm, Allah is not unjust. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will judge the exceptions, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will judge the norm, Allah will judge everyone. And on the Day of Judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will, you have your standing, I have my standing. And that's how we need to answer. And I found that non-Muslims are very receptive to that. Non-Muslims are extremely receptive to that idea, that Allah will judge everyone as an individual. But I'm telling you, this is the truth. But Allah will judge everyone as an individual. I found non-Muslims always to be very receptive. Jazakallah, may Allah reward you for asking the question. You also, it's a very important issue, so I appreciate you guys bringing it up. Yes?
I think you touched this briefly regarding saying La ilaha illallah and believing in La ilaha illallah. I think it's very important to, we can elaborate that. And it's a somebody is born in a Muslim family and he does not like really believe in La ilaha illallah, what does that really mean? Like, he's saying La ilaha illallah, but he might not believe. You can maybe distinguish the two.
The question is, touching upon the difference between saying La ilaha illallah and believing La ilaha illallah. On the day of judgment, the Prophet said that everyone who has an atom's worth of iman, belief in his heart, will enter into Jannah. What are the arkan of iman? To believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His angels, His messengers, His books, the day of judgment, and divine decree. What is the first of the 5 pillars of Islam? Arkan of Islam. What's the first one? Shahada, to testify La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. So the pillars are external. The pillars of Islam are external. Iman is something that's internal. Allah, Rasulullah says a person has an atom's worth of iman in his heart, he will be pulled out. So someone might say La ilaha illallah and does him absolutely no good whatsoever if he doesn't have any belief in that. So yes, being born a Muslim does not mean everyone's born a Muslim, right? Christians are born Muslims too. Jews are born. Satan worshippers are born Muslim. So being born a Muslim does not do any good for you. Right? It's how you believe. Whenever you have the full capacity of belief and you don't have an excuse, you're saying you're an adult and the message has reached you properly. That's when you will be accountable then according to your belief. Jazakallah. You have a question, thanks.
You know how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that no one will die after the day of judgment, and if you go to hell, and all the hot fire that's 69 times hotter than the real fire on earth, and it's so hot that if you die, well, why do you die if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that you won't die after the day of judgment?
So you don't die in hellfire. The question is, how do you, if hell, why can't you just be like your friend and just call me smart? That's a very good question. So the question is, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says there's no death today when you're in hellfire, then how do you die in hellfire with punishment and burning? Allah takes away the quality of death, so the people of hellfire don't die